All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk About It, Student Counseling and Friends. Today we have Veronica Mixon as our friend. I'm Herb with Student Counseling Services. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And like every time we talk, Student Counseling Services is open. So we want you all to know that. We're seeing people virtually, and you can schedule your first appointment via the patient portal, or you can call in. Also follow us on Instagram at UAB SCS to stay up to date with what we're doing on campus. All right. So today we're going to talk about it. We're not going to run from the conversation. We're going to dive into it. And it's what's going on in society. We have been seeing the information about George and him being killed, and Breonna Taylor and her being killed, and the guy at Central Park bird watching, and the lady using his skin tone as a weapon against him and putting on a full theatrical show in order to get him arrested. And so, we're going to talk about it. And as always, we're going to keep it in the mental health scope, because everything that we're seeing and experiencing, it definitely impacts our mental health and well-being. So we're going to have a conversation about that. And so let me introduce the guest, our friend for this week, Veronica, because she is a very connected person on campus, and very passionate about mental health. And so, Veronica, tell us about yourself.
Okay. Hey, everyone. I'm Veronica Mixon. I'm actually a rising senior here at UAB. Specifically, my majors are psychology with a certificate in clinical mental health, and then Africana studies. So my realm tends to be specifically like Black wellness and Black mental health on campus. So I tend to work with student orgs to provide those resources through counseling services, as well as through the wellness department. So my platform is really pushing to provide resources for Black students to help mitigate the lack of support. So yeah, I'm glad that I got to talk today.
Well, good. So, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
This has been nothing new from the standpoint of racial trauma and injustice.
Yeah.
But it's different this time.
Yeah.
At least that's my take on it. How do you feel about that?
Well, my take as like a Black Studies scholar is like it's very different, because I think a lot of us weren't really a lot of us knew about these things and we were cognizant of it, but now it's reoccurring in our face 24/7 because social media provides that platform. Mm-hmm. So it's like, for me, the things I've looked into, the things I've learned, it's kind of like, lynching by another name. So it's like it's internalizing that these things are still occurring within society and occurring within our vicinities now. Like I know someone who's in Minnesota and is in the town where everything went down, and he was like, it's weird when you're right there. You hear about it, but you're right there now, and it's like it's a different vibe. So I think I wholeheartedly agree. It's a different energy coming from this, especially since a lot of people are just fed up and tired and emotionally drained from everything going on, because they want to fight, but the way this is set up, it's different from what any of us have experienced or even expected 2020 to look like right now.
Man, I saw this meme, and it was like, if 2020 was a food, what would it be? I'm like, stinking chitlins, boy. This is
yes. It's like
unclean chitlins.
Everything's just like 2020 was like, oh, I just got here, but let me hit you with like 3 years of work, and we're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's like clear vision. Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. That term, like if you heard that used a lot when it came to George Floyd, it's like modern day lynching.
Yeah.
And it's a knee on the neck instead of a rope around the neck.
Mm-hmm.
And lynchings used to be a very public spectacle.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular death and injustice and killing just seems like it's been a public spectacle in ways.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's been different. I saw a graphic to where it highlighted every state in America that had protests, and every state was highlighted.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at multiple protests in each state.
Yeah.
And so definitely the attention is there, unlike when Eric Gardner or Trayvon Martin or Philando
Mm-hmm.
Castile, like there was attention, but this is different.
Yeah.
And I think this time too, before it was always like a way of like, well, if he'd have done this, then this, like, there was room for like reasonable doubt for some people's minds to sneak in. And this time it's not the case. It's Breonna Taylor sleep and they go in the wrong house and kill her.
Yeah. And that goes along with social media too. Cause like,
yes.
Before social media would highlight things, but now it's like even me being on like my social media platforms, it's like every time there's an instance, there's like a clear video where you can see the face, you can see everything that goes down. So it's harder for people to be like, oh, well, this is what really happened, when we have it from point A all the way to point C. So there's no way you can blur the lines of what truly happened.
Yeah. Like with the brother of mine who was running. And they tried to come up with every scenario of him. He was going in this house and it wasn't his property. And they went back and showed plenty of people going in the house and looking around that had no intention of buying that house. And so, and you're right. Like the availability of information is so clear.
Yeah.
And their angles. And so it removes where the doubt shouldn't have been there before. It's definitely less room for that now.
Yeah.
And if you try to find a way to like justify it, then you're really identifying yourself as being somebody who maybe just didn't have value for that person, that skin tone in general. And so that's the way it's presenting right now. And that energy is definitely high. And so, I see students on social media. And speaking of that energy being high, saw where students have been at the marches and protesting. Have you participated in any of the protests?
I have, and I think it's actually very beneficial for, not even just beneficial for students going to protest. I think it's just beneficial for people to participate in any way that they can to the movement, because it goes along with, protesting isn't for everyone in a sense, because there's different avenues that everyone can have and let out their frustrations and let out their support in that aspect. So it's like, I resonate with the students that are actively at the front lines, because some of my friends are actively at the front lines all the time. And I also resonate with those who are still frustrated, but signing petitions, donating, and things of that nature. Because I know it's a few students who got their CARES Act and were like, you know what, I'm going to donate some of it to these causes, because, this is the way that I can contribute and I can let out how I'm feeling without being at the front lines, because it's not where I feel like I can resonate my resources the best. So, I have. And I've, doing things like this. I even participated in the IG Live to talk about, the psychological connection to systematic racism within America, and, just providing a platform to get people, providing an opportunity for people to get education on the things that they say they don't know about, or the things that they say they don't notice within society, even though it's inherently evident.
Yeah. One thing I was telling somebody the other day when it comes to what role we play, and it was, everybody doesn't have to play the same position, but we all have a position we can play. And everybody's not going to be on the front lines. Like even with me, for me, it's been my part in this as a mental health professional and being acutely aware of just in general what it's like to be a person oppressed in society. But then right now with what's going on with what's happening in society. It's like, if there's a space for me, and of course, the language and the perception of mental health has changed a lot in society. And so it's okay to have those conversations in general. And so when it comes to stuff like this, it's be active, and then where's the counterbalance?
Yeah.
Be active, and what are you doing to take care of yourself? And you provided some great information for that. And I would love to, jump into that discussion, and we can, of course, share that information with the social media posting. But you have some work on, something you created on coping with racial trauma. Tell me what was the driving force behind creating that?
So, on campus, I tend to really, outside of campus, I'm a very driven person in regarding to mental health, like I brought up earlier. And so for me, while being in quarantine, at first I was like, what can we do? Because everyone's separated. It's not like we can get together and have self-care activities or have conversations like before. And so when protesting started happening and people were being overwhelmed with the social media imaging and all those other things, I really started to recognize that a lot of people I was close to were not able to cope with what's going on. They were really struggling to keep a balance between being Black and also trying to utilize their platform to speak out or do different things within the movement and participate. And so for me, I felt like it was important to remind people on social media and not just people within UAB, but in general that, you can have this connection with activism as to where you are actively being involved, you're speaking out, but you're being cognizant of your limits and your mental health at the same time. Because, you can't always be in that space 24/7. You can be aware of the space, but you need to disconnect and be mindful of your space within having healthy time to decompress, read a book, watch something, because you don't have to be consistently on that topic 24/7 and still not be an activist, because you can have both. So that's why.
Yeah, and that's important, because just like anything, there can be a level of shame attached to it, because there are activists and people involved who feel there's only one way to do it. If you don't do it my way, then you're not doing it right. And so that's not exclusive to activism. That's in every area of society. And so recognizing that there is no one way to it, there's multiple ways to it. And everybody, you can be active in your own way. You don't need 1,000 followers to have a platform. And you don't have to be out there protesting in a certain way. You can be out there handing out water.
Yeah.
Or you can go the day after for the cleanups. I mean, you have ways, some people have more of a voice when it comes to having certain discussions or just talking to family members or whatever. And so that's true. And so finding that balance and recognizing your limits are important. And so the first thing you have is log off.
Yeah. I specifically chose that as the first one because I know with people within my age group love social media. It's our place to where we get most of our information, especially Twitter, because Twitter tends to give it to you raw and give it to you unlike the news. They'll give it to you. They'll give you the pieces you're missing that the news story didn't tell you or up front. So it's being in the face of that raw information, being filled with it, I feel like it was important to highlight that, you don't have to be strong 24/7 by consistently facing it, because that's not being strong. Being strong is being able to recognize that, we can take a break from it and that you don't always have to look at the imagery 24/7.
Yeah, I'm sure you hear my kids beating on this door in the background.
It's okay.
So I'm having to message my wife to come get my youngest. So she hears us in there talking. So just so you know, podcast family, we really not cut around here. And we're working from home, so I don't have a private studio to do this.
What?
But girl, stop knocking on this door.
I had the same issue with my pet the last time I was on IG Live. He was like completely trying to get my attention, like trying to get all in the video. And I was like, look.
All up in the video.
But yeah.
Dancing and caring. You know, yeah, we're not pausing, we're not editing.
Yeah.
You know, it's what it is. So definitely logging off. I mean, and even for people like me, I mean,
yeah,
I'm 41 and I'm in that age group that definitely is connected to Atari and Xbox One generation. Like, I got a little bit of both. And so, but you're right, logging off, man, like we take in so much information.
Yeah.
And right now, with COVID and quarantine, we have a lot of space to take in a lot of information.
Yeah.
Which I think directly contributes to the length of what's going on. We're not having to go to work Monday for the most part.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to work, but like if you're like me, we're doing it at home. And you have a lot of people who are out of work. And so you have a lot of energy out there.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot more space to consume information. And so definitely logging off is important because, and I have this conversation with people, is that news outlets are still news outlets, regardless of what's going on. And news outlets need viewership.
Yeah.
And so what do we do to create viewership, even in times of like stress and what we're going on right now, societal, you know, trauma or just injustice or whatever it is, or fear? It's like, well, we need you to watch our version of it, and then our ratings go up. And so I think, you know, being aware of that is always important when it comes to how much information you consume, and like you had in the first one, just the importance of logging off. Because we have control. We got log off,
Exactly.
we can unfriend, you know, we have control of those things.
I think it's just, yeah, I think it's also difficult too, because like, you know, some people I've talked to who are trying, like in the beginning when they started seeing more and more people were posting and trying to relay information, and they had friends that weren't as supportive or weren't really down with the cause or didn't believe in the cause, you know, people reached out and was like, how do you manage that? How do you disconnect them from your friend group? Or like, do you, even if they're not friends, like what if it's someone you went to high school with, you know, and you don't want to disconnect it? But I was like, I proposed to them, like, if you end that social media friendship, then were you guys really friends? Was there any type of connection outside of social media? Because like at this point, you have to be utilize what social media is telling you to benefit you. So if you see that your friends are posting the opposite of what you view, you know, that's okay, even though you may not agree with it and they may not agree with you. Instead of continuously going back and forth, at some point you're gonna have to decide, do I cut it off? Do I just unfriend, unfollow? And that's completely fine. There's no negative thing behind being like, you know, I'm gonna block this person. I'm gonna unfollow them. Because realistically, if you haven't seen them since high school, or even you haven't seen them since quarantine and they're acting like this, then maybe they didn't identify you as a friend in the first place. Because your friends are supposed to understand your values and understand what you believe in and believe in you. So if they don't believe in the cause that's talking about your life and your existence, then it's okay to unfollow. It's okay to disconnect. It's okay to mute their story. I've done that for some people. I'd be like, you know what, let me mute this. I don't want to see any of this.
And that's the thing. That's a word, because like I had a conversation with a guy this week that I've known for years, and we play video games together, and we've been connected on social media, and we fall on different sides of things in a lot of areas. And he is one who just likes to stoke the flame regardless of what direction it's from, because he's not, I know a few people like this. It's like whatever the majority is thinking, I'm not going to just run to the majority. I'm just going to maybe question or whatever. But he reached out to me to have a conversation. Like, let's talk on the phone. Okay. You sure you want to do that? But okay. But the thing is, I was even willing to have a conversation with him because I respect him. And the thing is that we don't have to agree on everything hand in hand. Because, you know, be pushed to either you're a liberal or a Democrat or, or a Republican or whatever, and think that's just a dividing factor. That's not even the case, but it's like, all right, I respect you enough to have a conversation. And by reaching out to me and having this conversation, you finna get everything I got to say.
Yeah.
But, and I'm not doing that with everybody. Mm-hmm. There's some people where it's like, you know what? You're just muted, or I just don't pay attention to you.
Exactly.
And I also recognize nothing's won in the comment section. So even if I don't unfriend you because I don't just take the time to think about it, I can scroll past your foolishness and keep on going.
Exactly.
And not be caught up in the need to jump in the comment section and wage war. Minds aren't changed in the comment section. At least that's not my fault.
It's not.
So I see also you have, and we sort of talked about this already, but managing your energy.
Yeah. So that one's mainly identifying how, like, within quarantine, because I feel like people aren't, I feel like a lot of Black people aren't recognizing the things that are facing them right now. Like, we have the protesting, we have the trying to get donations and volunteer. We're also trying to, some of us are in school still. Like, I'm taking 12 hours.
In the summer, a lot of hours.
Yeah, it is. But, and then like work. And then there's also, we're in a pandemic. There's also, people aren't in like even working because of the pandemic. So it's like, there's a lot of stressors building up. And so while at home, by adding structure to your schedule, the same structure you would have without quarantine, it provides a balance to where you're not being hit with information at high volumes anymore. So like, say like what I like to do, what I used to like to do is wake up and do a morning run in my neighborhood. So it's like, I did that in the morning at 8, and then I come back, make my protein shake, then get prepared for my day, actually set out time for work and class. But by doing that, it provides it where I'm not always on my phone. I'm not always debating with someone back and forth. I'm also managing like how much time I'm able to speak on that topic with someone, or like educate someone on a topic. So it's like, it provides this space of, okay, I'm managing my spaces within the voices that I want, like my voice and what I want to say and what I want to be a part of and how I want to be involved in the movement. So I think it really provides this opportunity for us to see how you can manage your own self while trying to be there for the community. So I think that was like a really important component to me, because like, there's no way that you can help uplift the community if you're not prepared mentally and if you're not mentally there. Because at one point, once you're overwhelmed, you could be doing something and then just be out of it and not really understand like how much energy you can put in if you're actively okay in that moment. And it's okay to not be okay. You just have to be able to say it and manage it.
Yeah. And that, that's something, coming, as you know, you've been connected with counseling services with the work that you've done in wellness promotions and being on the student advisory board. That's good information regardless.
Yep.
And that's the beauty of it. It's not just, this is specific for, coping with racial trauma. This is about, in general, you generalize that information, you just reapply it over and over again. And specifically, we're talking about what's going on in society right now and how it is impacting our student population. And so inserting structure where structure isn't there for you. Yeah. So the students who I have that, work a lot, they find it easier, not easier, but it manages differently when you have natural distractions.
Yeah, exactly.
You used to have when class was in session and you were on campus physically. And so trying to institute that is important. And I always tell people, like, when this whole pandemic first started, the first week we were at home, it was hell on wheels because I had no structure, no rhyme, no reason, eating whatever, staying up late, out, because I went from a very rigid, structured schedule to just absolutely wide open space and everybody's at home. And so the biggest difference was like, okay, regrouping and like, let's get some here. And so doing that is important. And so lastly, I see, and I would love to hear you talk about this, is express your humanity, voice out your concerns.
Mm-hmm. So that one's more so like, I think as a student, sometimes it's difficult to want to use your platform, or you feel like your voice doesn't necessarily matter within your institution, or even within the spaces that you're in. Because I know UAB is predominantly white institution and it's PWI. So people, sometimes you might be in spaces as to where you feel like if you say something, you know, you're going to be condemned, or if you say something, you're going to have an issue of people not being able to hear you. But even within that, you still have a natural right to say how you feel. It is nothing, there's nothing wrong with being in spaces with friends and trying to start a dialogue and voice your concerns and voice how you feel. If, say, you want to be a part of this, or you want your friends to actively hear how you're feeling and hear what you're saying as to why it matters to you, and hear your humanity and hear that you are a being that has feelings and has concerns. It also correlates with being able to cry. Like, if you have friend groups and you've never had a dialogue about, like, you know, race within your race, or like anything like that in general, this is a prime opportunity to be like, you know what, you are my best friend. And honestly, I've been overwhelmed, I've been stressed, I've just been all over the place. And I want us to talk about it. And I want to hear how you feel. And that's completely fine, whether they take it or whether they don't. And this also can go with social media. Sometimes people like to write something, how they're feeling, and then post it, and write about the injustices going on and post it. That's completely fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And if someone condemns you for it, then you have to continuously remind yourself that you have a voice and your voice matters. So if someone disagrees with your voice, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter, because everyone has the right to speak. If they can speak on how they're feeling, if they can speak on the issues that they're facing, then you have your platform to speak on it, regardless of what situation you're in. So I think it's like, I think a lot of students need to, you know, and like I said, this doesn't apply to just students, but people in general need to recognize that within this space, within this movement, we can say how we feel. We can say what we want to say, because people need to hear that. And when you say how you feel, people who believe in the same thing, or people who resonate with you, will gather to you. And then you have that community. You have that group where you're able to say it and have someone resonate with it, even if it's not the people you wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. That's what's well said. That's everything it needs to be.
Yeah.
And so here's a loaded question that I know but if you, and I'm not asking you to speak for the entire student body, but if you just say like something that you feel would be good for the students to have right now, what is something that could take place or would take place, or something that can be done just to, whether it's show support or give students space or whatever that looks like? What would you suggest?
I think it goes along with, you know, the last point I just brought up, like about expressing humanity. I feel like, you know, the institution could provide us with more opportunities to have events where we see even like people we look up to, like our mentors involved with UAB, being a part of like dialogue about what's going on. Because a lot of people don't recognize that, you know, what's going on, you know, we have professionals within fields at UAB that can actively discuss like how this is connected to history, or how this is connected to mental health. And I feel like if we see our mentors, or if we see our, not even just mentors, but people, faculty and staff, having that dialogue, UAB is intentionally like pushing out this dialogue of diversity within, by acknowledging what's going on through dialogue. I think that'll be beneficial as well. You know, I know they've provided support through the CARES Act, they provided support through counseling services, but what students also like to see is that our institution is creating further conversation about what people are feeling, how it is wrong what's going on racially, and how we can move forward as a student body to interact more conversation and interact more communication about the situation in a way that benefits Black students to make them feel comfortable. Because I know, like, for me, I would love to be able to see some of my mentors within diversity, equity, inclusion, within the African American Studies program, actually sit down and talk about the historical connection to, you know, what's going on now to back then during the civil rights movement, like, and talk about the progression, or even talk about how mental health is viewed differently within the Black community, and how right now we're having a shift of more Black people recognizing that, you know what, I really need to find ways of self-care through this drastic time because there's so much being hit at me at one time. So I think those type of conversations are important. And I know UAB has sent out their letter, and, you know, some departments have sent out something, but I feel like actively seeing the faculty and staff take a lead on creating that, I think that would also be really, really beneficial. Because then we see and we feel like, wow, they're supporting. Like, this is what support. Like, it's more about the actions than just the words, because the actions really push like how we're feeling. We're like, okay, we resonate. We see that you resonate because you're actively trying to cultivate something based on what we're saying. So I think that would be amazing, because I know a lot of people now we're via Zooms. So it's like, you know, being able to sit down and listen to this podcast is very helpful. This is a prime example of exactly what I feel like UAB could be pushing more, like, you know, conversation, dialogue, as well as action within the community as well. So there's a lot of different things, but I think action is what's really, really necessary in this moment right now. But, yeah.
What? There's nothing to add to perfection. That was amazing. And I think we're going to leave it there. This is another episode of Let's Talk About It, Student Counseling and Friends. Today's friend is one of my favorite students on UAB campus. I know we're not supposed to have favorites, but it is. I've known Veronica for quite a while through wellness promotion, through Student Advisory Board, through Greek Life, through the Black Experience Group. She is one of the reasons the Black Experience Group is alive and well today. And so I appreciate you and what you do on campus. And this is the tip of the iceberg for all the impact that you will continue to have going forward. Student counseling still open. If you need us, come talk to us. We have a diverse staff, and if you feel like you want to talk to somebody specifically, you can request. And we have a staff of people who with specialties, different backgrounds. And so you request, talk to somebody. Mental health will always matter, and we're here for you. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.